This is our second of 2 regional panel sessions on Europe programs. So I see our attendees coming in now. This is our second week of the Global Fair. We've been really excited to use this new virtual format. I hope you have enjoyed them as well, whether you've been able to join us live or watch us on YouTube afterwards. We've really found them to be a great way for you to get connected to the project center directors. I'll just give a couple more minutes. And just as a reminder, this is hosted as a webinar format, so you'll be able to see the project center directors and some slides that they've prepared for you. We'll have some remarks just generally about each project center, and then we'll dive into Q&A from there. This is really run by you as the students who have the questions. So if you have a question while a project center director is speaking, feel free to type it in the Q&A, which you can find on the bottom. Or if something comes up after we've heard from the project center directors, you can also use that Q&A box. But we want to hear from you and the questions that you have. So I will start from here. It looks like our attendees are here and we're glad to have you. Just as a reminder, this is the second week of our virtual Global Fair. We've enjoyed this new format to try and reinvent or reimagine what is usually an in-person event. If this is your first Global Fair event, we're glad to have you. We know that there's a lot going on and not every student can come to every event. So we've done our best to post those to our YouTube live for recordings if students were not able to come. You can find the whole schedule at Plus Global Fair 2020. You can also find the links to YouTube there. And keep in mind that we have a few more regional panels this week, as well as a return student session tomorrow night. So if you want to talk to students who have gone away before, that would be a great place to come. The other place, if this is your first experience with what to do about off-campus IQP and the application process, the other place to go is Plus Off-Campus IQP. That's where you'll see step-by-step guide to how to apply and any other reminders from our office. And then finally, e-projects. We're going to talk about e-projects multiple times tonight, I'm sure. That's where you can read more details about each project center and where you will complete your application and your project center preference form. So without further ado, I'm going to pause my share for a second just so you can see who's in the room. So tonight, as I mentioned, we have our second group of project center directors from Europe. We have so many projects in Europe that we needed to host 2 events. And tonight we're focusing on the Bucharest, Romania Project Center, and Professor Rodica Neamtu is here to talk about that center. Professor Svetlana Nikotina is here to talk about the Moscow, Russia Project Center. Professors Marie Keller and Aaron Deskins are here to talk about our Prague Project Center in the Czech Republic. Professor Bob Hirsch is here to talk about the Thessaloniki Project Center in Greece, as well as the Tirana, Albania Project Center. And Professor Fabio Carrera is here to talk about Venice, Italy, with your background, I think, is in Venice. And finally, Professor Holly Alt is here to talk about the Yerevan, Armenia Project Center. So thank you all for being here. I will reshare my screen and then we will go on to hear from the directors. Starting with the Bucharest Project Center.
Hello, everybody. So the Bucharest Project Center is a very, very new center. We just started this past spring. And what you see on the screen is like just a quick glance at the very interesting projects that we're offering out there. I have to say, from promoting ecotourism to saving urban wetlands to promoting American collaboration through the American Chamber of Commerce to building an intergenerational center for children from disadvantaged backgrounds to be mentored by volunteers, retiree volunteers. We have a lot of interesting projects in Bucharest. And we had also planned for a lot of fun things, which we didn't get to do last year, but we're hoping that you would be the lucky generation that will go to visit the Carpathian Mountains and the Danube Delta. So I guess what I want to share with you today is that we have created a very comprehensive website for the Bucharest Center, in which not only can you learn things about Romania and about our projects, but I highly, highly, highly recommend that you guys go and see the students who worked this past spring, hear the enthusiasm and hear the passion in their voices. And I'll say this to you. They were like that after being disappointed for not going to Bucharest, but they still made the best out of it. So I can only imagine what the center will be when we'll really manage to go there. So I'm hoping that you're going to take a peek at our center and ask all the questions that you want to ask. We are delighted, my colleague Bogdan Vernescu and I, to hear about your interest and to answer any questions that you guys have about the Bucharest Center.
Great, thank you so much. Let's go on to Moscow.
Okay, welcome everyone to the largest country in the world by far, with great resources for us to explore. Multinational country which spans 2 continents, 1/3 of it being in Europe, 2/3 in Asia, and a real opportunity for to work on projects from aerospace to energy efficiency in public transportation, to building robots to prevent gas leaks in the pipelines in the Caspian Sea and in the Black Sea. We also have worked a lot with the elderly and the blind on assistive technologies, both in education and in the education system and in the nursing homes. Students worked a lot on the app and website design, promoting IT education in Russian secondary schools. You're dealing with a very educated IT proficient population, so those projects tend to crop up. What I wanted to point out is that we are very fortunate to offer extensive preparation for Russia. In the C term, the term before you go there, you take a full credit at no additional cost, an HU 2230 course, which has language training, history education, and some literature studies, so you'd get some cultural background, and arrive in Moscow with ability to read Cyrillic alphabet and communicate at a basic level. You also take the Russian language class at the university where we stay and work. So you're part of a vibrant university life, of a big campus, of the largest business school in the country, the Financial University of Moscow, located in the heart of the city, 10 minutes away from the Red Square. And you also work on every single project. You collaborate with the Russian university students, handpicked for their academic excellence by their faculty, who are your project partners and your hopefully lifelong friends. In the 6th year of its existence, students who have gone to Moscow remained friends with their Russian partners because they worked so closely. They interacted with their Russian counterparts, not only on projects, but in social life. When we arrive there, your friends are meeting you because we had the whole C term of Skyping with them. So you have a social network you arrive at, and then you stay connected. Your day, I saw that some of you asked that question, what a day in Moscow looks like. You usually start by having a jog in the local park. Moscow, despite being very urbanized, is very green. So near us, there are a lot of parks. You work with your sponsors and your project partners, who are, by the way, in classes, so you have to work around their schedule, but they're usually free to have dinner with you and socialize in the evening, as well as discuss project work. You explore cultural sites. There are a lot of them nearby. Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, used to live in the next door to where we stay. So you can actually visit the flat and do other exploration throughout the city. And then you either work in the evening or figure out where you like to have a meal. You can choose Uzbek food, Ukrainian food, Russian food, Italian food even sometimes, although I cannot, Fabio can probably be skeptical about the quality of Italian food in Moscow, but it's available and popular. But you can also have Armenian and Georgian and all the other multinational cuisines that Moscow has to offer. So great opportunities to explore cultural exploration includes a trip to St. Petersburg, which is built into the program. So it's no additional cost. It's built into your fee. We also go to the Aerospace Museum with the real Sputnik, the actual Sputnik, and the replicas of other spacecraft, which students enjoy. You see a picture in here on the slide. And you also have an opportunity to challenge cultural stereotypes. There's a lot of bad blood between Russia and the United States. And you have an opportunity to be cultural diplomats, maybe better than our politicians, to build bridges, to challenge those stereotypes and make real lifelong friends.
Great, thank you so much. Let's hear from Prague.
Hi, I'm Marie Keller. I'm one of the co-directors with Aaron Deskins of the Prague Center. And this year is our first year of having an IQP, and of course we're online. So we're currently working with a project to develop our website for the center, and also working with people who are involved with Czech puppetry, which is a long traditional art form in the country, as well as examining democracy and how it is developed in the Czech Republic since it's separated from Czechoslovakia. Aaron, did you want to say?
Yeah, so I mean, this is our first year, and unfortunately we didn't have students go to Prague, but we're planning on next year. And we're excited to have students come and help establish the center. So the students who go are really going to be some of the torchbearers on getting this project center started. And there's a lot of vibrant activity in Prague, as you can see in this picture. There's a lot of tourism. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of art, culture. There's a lot of opportunities for learning new things, discovering new things, and just having a great experience. Prague is a great city to be in. It's a safe city. Lots of amenities and things to for vegetarian or diets or any sort of diet you might have. It's there, and so it's a very accommodating city.
Great, thanks for that background. Let's move on to Greece.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Hirsch. I'm wearing my Greek hat now. As you can see from the picture, Thessalonica is by the Thermaic Gulf, part of the Aegean Sea. And across from it is Mount Olympus, where students have hiked in the 6 years we've been there. But in order to talk about the projects, I have to give you some background as to sort of why I started the center there at a particular moment in Greek history. And that moment was during the Greek economic crisis. It started in 2009 and continues. And that economic crisis was worse than the American Depression. And why that's important for the Project Center is because it gave us, in some ways, the backdrop for many of the initiatives that we worked on. And so, for example, during the crisis, 40% of young people were unemployed. Major public welfare programs were diminished or cut. Livelihoods for many people were upended. And so we worked with a number of nonprofit organizations, municipal government agencies on three broad thematic areas for our projects. The first was trying to figure out how can we work with small scale artisanal producers in rural areas to develop their revenue streams, particularly when the market in Greece was not very strong. So we did a number of projects trying to think through how can we figure out ways to help artisanal producers of grape leaves, of olives, even something called snail eggs, if you can believe it, Aphrodite's pearls, some people call it, to develop markets in the United States and other places. That's one aspect. The second large theme we looked at was considering what could be done to help local communities in the city of Thessalonica engage with the sorts of services that previously the government had done. And so we did a lot of work with local community groups looking at how do you develop community gardens? How do you help people think about food growing in balconies? Because Thessalonica is such a crowded city that there's very little land, but people have balconies. And so students developed hydroponic schemes so people could grow food on their balconies. We also looked at questions around what do you do with excess land? So military bases that were in the city, students worked with local agencies and communities to come up with design ideas to make public amenities available to people and to deal with, in some ways, the loss of many other public amenities from the crisis. And the last larger theme we've looked at was broadly environmental sustainability. So if you look at climate change impact forecasts, there is a sort of a dire prediction for that part of the world, particularly northern Greece, with lower precipitation and water shortages. So we've done a number of projects looking at how to become more efficient in agriculture with water use, how to treat effluents through artificial wetlands, and how also to think about how do you develop food waste programs, both at the small scale, at the institutional level, say at the American Farm School that we partner with, but also in small cities across northern Greece. So those are the three large themes we work on. The city of Thessalonica is a lovely city, as you can see. It's full of life, many wonderful markets to go to. The area around Thessalonica is not what you imagine to be the sort of blue beaches, the blue water and sandy beaches of the islands, but they're lovely mountains and rivers that the students have liked to hike around. You don't have to speak Greek to do projects. The projects that we do both in Thessalonica, and I'll talk about in Tirana, are very, very, very much field-based. You don't go to an office, you're out in the field, in farm fields, or you're going into the city areas and talking with people. We're going into factories to look at olive processing. So it's very active, very field-based. So bring heavy shoes, hiking shoes with you. Okay, I should go to the next.
Great. Let's go on to Albania too.
Okay, so my guess is everybody knows where Greece is, but in 2016, when I was going to Albania, I requested an absentee ballot. I wrote an email to my town clerk. I said, I'm going to be in Albania. And she wrote back to me saying, Bob, why do you need an absentee ballot if you're going to be in Albany? So it's not Albany, New York. It really is a different country. It's north of Greece, south of Montenegro, and about 90 miles across for the Adriatic Sea from the project center of my good friend, Fabio Carrera. So just as I said, that our projects in Greece emerged from the economic crisis, this long historical process. In Albania, the projects need to be, I think, contextualized by thinking from 1945 to 1991, Albania was perhaps the most closed-off communist regime in the face of the world. It was sort of like the North Korea at that time. And so in the 20 years, 30 years, I suppose, since, what our projects have been looking at is how do you work in a country that's going through this democratic transition? How do you think through questions around community engagement, equitable development, questions around social justice? These are some of the areas that we've been working on. So our projects, to be more specific, and you could look at, I suppose, the little short video that I did to get a better sense of those. But there are, again, I think I seem to love three. So there's like three thematic areas we work on in Albania. One is, one of the most pressing environmental concerns is wastewater. Only about 15% of all households are connected to a wastewater treatment plant. So the ramifications of this, environmentally and socially, are very, very important. So we're working with a number of utilities to try to work out strategies for wastewater treatment and environmental benefits around water quality. We've done a lot of work. One of the big problems in Northern Albania in particular is flooding, and this is climate change related. And so we've done a lot of work looking at how can you work with local communities who have for many years have not been included in any decision making to take part in planning to help them prepare and mitigate the consequences of flooding. We've done a number of projects along these lines. And the last area, partly because of the importance of maintaining a rural agricultural base, we've looked at a lot of questions, somewhat like in Greece, at about maintaining and sustaining rural livelihoods. So we've done a lot of projects looking at how do you create sustainable processes for cultivating and harvesting medicinal and aromatic herbs. How can you develop artisanal products for things like propolis from bees or goat jerky? And then we're also doing things related to rural development. So how can we come up with a national rambling path to attract tourists from Northern Europe and perhaps from the United States to come back to Albania and to spread the benefits of a more equitable tourist system to more people. Again, it's Albania, you don't need to speak Albanian to have a successful project there. It's in B term. Wonderful food, as in Greece. And the students make great use of the public amenities available to them. There's wonderful theater, wonderful cafes, and lovely parks. And Albania, even though you probably don't have much of a mental image, is one of the most diverse landscapes in Europe. So we encourage students to travel and see the country. That's about it from me. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And on to Venice.
Hi, I'm Fabio Carrera, the director of the Venice Project Center. Venice operates in Term B, and the preparation is in Term A. The Venice Project Center was the first non-English speaking center that WPI ever opened, and we've been operating since 1988. So over 30 years of projects in Venice, with over 800 students from WPI, about over 200 IQPs completed there. So we really, in terms of types of projects, we really span the whole gamut from A to Z, literally from archaeology to zoology and everything in between. We even did DNA genetic studies to see the origins of Venetians with National Geographic and many, many more. On the screen, you see the website of the Venice Project Center, veniceprojectcenter.org. You can find pretty much everything in there that I'm going to be talking about and more. Literally, it's very easy to search. So if you want to know what types of projects we've done in the past, all of them are in there. So it's a mature center with we span many themes because, we've been doing it for 3 decades. One big area is smart cities. We work a lot with technology applied to city services and mobile apps and things of that nature. Recently, we've been working on urban agriculture projects. And a lot of the projects that we do have to do with heritage preservation, because Venice, as you probably know, even though it's a small city, is very rich in the heritage and architecture and art. It ruled the Mediterranean for over 1,000 years and is, it's a small city, only a population is a little over 50,000. So students from WPI have been able to actually make a difference in Venice over these 30 years. And most recently, we've moved to these new offices you see on the screen. It gives you also a feeling for what Venice looks like if you've never seen it before. Our new VPC office is inside this former church on the island of the Giudecca, and it's a church that's been rehabbed to also be an incubator for startups. You see the glass cube inside, that's inside the church. So it's a beautiful space where we now are keeping our archive of over 200 projects, and that's where the students actually work from when they're there. Other areas that we work on is environment. Obviously, Venice is at the front line in the climate change battles. Venice does get flooded in the winter, especially during B term. So you might see some real floods when you're there. It's nothing bad. Nobody dies. It's not like a tsunami, but it happens. And it's kind of fun in some ways. And most recently, we've also been working a lot on commerce and how it's changing, due primarily to the influx and the over tourism that was plaguing the city up until the other plague came in to actually kick all the tourists out. So Venice is now in a moment of historical moment, really, because of COVID, to think more carefully about what we might want to do in the future in terms of maybe managing tourism. And it's a city of 50,000 with over 30 million tourists every year. So that's really created an imbalance in the economy, which the COVID pandemic has emphasized. So basically, Venice had all the eggs in the tourism basket, and now, over the past several months, pretty much there's been no income coming in. So it's a time to rethink what we can do. You can see here on the screen some examples of projects that, as you can tell, span all kinds of areas, from accessibility issues for mobility impaired people to bells and bell towers that we've been collecting data on for many, many years. And finally, all these projects, if you go to the last screen, all these projects have led to applications. Aaron, can you move to the next screen? Hello? Okay. So over the years, we've also produced a lot of applications for the city to use and for that have been used to manage the city. And these are now, again, we're a mature center. These prototypes of applications that we developed over the years are slowly being turned into startups in that incubator that I just showed you earlier, because the goal now is to turn these 30 years of projects into alternative jobs for Venetians we like to say, young Venetians of all ages and Venetians from any origin. So basically anybody. We'd like to attract people to live in the city and work there, make a living, and be able to afford to reside in the city. And to do that, we need to create an alternative economy, really, to the economy of tourism that is the super over dominant kind of force in Venice. So a lot of the projects lately have been going in that direction to kind of foster this ecosystem we're creating in that church to kind of promote a rejuvenation of the economy in the city. Besides that, Venice is, there's plenty to see in Venice. Venice has no cars, you probably know that. Students get to see not just Venice, but the entire lagoon around it, which is beautiful, very idyllic, and also all the beautiful other cities in Italy that are only a couple of 1 hour or 2 hours away by train. Plus, students like to go fly out to other European cities from Venice. Venice is a very well-served airport with flights everywhere. This is before COVID, obviously, but we'll probably resume at some point. And so if you want more information, you can email me directly, or you can go to the website, veniceprojectcenter.org, to see to find answers there. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Professor Alt will finish us out with Yerevan, Armenia.
Okay, well, welcome to Armenia. This is an image of the Republic Square, which is in the heart of Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. And you can see the square by night is flanked by beautiful pink buildings that are made of a volcanic tufa stone, which is very light and very strong, and very beautiful architecture all throughout the city. These Republic Square actually hosts a concert every night during the summer with a light show in the fountains in front of these buildings, and it's really spectacular. And they're only a few blocks away from the student apartments that we use in Armenia. The country itself is in the middle of a beautiful mountainous country in the Caucasus Mountains, and it has a strong agricultural history, including growing apricots, walnuts, and wine. Excuse me. And in fact, one of the sites that you can visit there is a site where the archaeologists have discovered the oldest evidence of wine production in the world, and that's right there in Armenia. This kind of plays into one of the themes that we have for projects in Armenia of developing tourism in the post-Soviet era, as Armenia is starting to develop a stable democracy and strong ties to the Western world, as they've always had, even during the Soviet era, largely due to the fact that they have a very large global diaspora, which as a result of the genocide in 1915, where several million Armenians emigrated to places like the United States and France and Syria because of the genocide, to escape the genocide. And so many of those displaced Armenians are settled right here in the United States, including groups that are in Michigan, California, and Massachusetts. And some of you may know that we even have an Armenian church, which is located just off campus on Salisbury Street. So it's a very strong culture, and we have local ties to the Armenian community right here in Worcester, which is a great benefit to us. Armenia was actually the first country to adopt Christianity, and as a result, the tourist attractions in the country consist of a large number of monasteries, including Corvarop, which was the site where St. Gregory was martyred. He spent 13 years in the pit. And we have a number of weekend excursions that will take you to some of those sites, as well as the archaeological site. And you can see behind me some of the developing economy revolving around the wineries. And so this is a vineyard that's just been newly established. And if I move my head one way or the other, you maybe get a glimpse of Mount Ararat, which is actually in Turkey. And although we can't go there, its sister peak is in Armenia, and some of the students have actually hiked up that mountain. So they are developing tourism, and they also have a large development of economy that revolves around high tech. So some of our projects involve making a real difference in challenging the students to bring the Armenian people into the 21st century. Right now, Armenia is actually a very poor country. And so the projects that we do are really challenging. They really give you the opportunity to make a significant difference to these people in Armenia as they develop their economy revolving around high tech and tourism and entrepreneurship. We have projects focusing on healthcare. So for example, one of our first projects 3 years ago, we had a bootstrap group. There were 2 project teams in Armenia, and one of them was working with the mobile eye hospital, bringing eye care to people in the rural areas of Armenia. And that team won the President's IQP Award in the very first year of the Armenia Project Center. So we're really proud of that. We work in the area of education. We had a project a couple of years ago where the students were working with an organization that is bringing the programming skills and business entrepreneurship skills to girls in middle and high school. It's a program called Technovation, and they also scored some successes, the organization, in that one of their teams of girls developed an app that went on to win the international competition in the whole world, of all the teams in the whole world. And we worked with that organization to strengthen their program. So there are a lot of kinds of projects there that will allow you to really make an impact on the Armenian culture and society and their economic development. The food in Armenia is fabulous. You have apartments that are right in the center of the city, lots of very, very diverse restaurants, and a lot of very inexpensive restaurants that are available there. There's a great big market and a lot of other cultural sites that you can see in Yerevan as well. So if you have any questions about the Armenia Project Center, you can certainly email me. I'd be happy to talk to you and answer your questions. And I think we'll just go back to Erin now. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It's really great to hear from everybody, just a little bit more about your project centers. And I just want to remind the students that each of these project center directors has also created a short video, which you can watch on eProjects for more details about their centers as well, along with the content that you can read on eProjects. So before we dive into questions, just a reminder that if you have general questions about the application process, you can always reach out to our office at global@wpi.edu. And you should have received a first message from your application liaison if you are a sophomore, and you'll be getting a second message this week. This is a new program. We have just divided out sophomores and assigned them each to a staff member in our office, just to quote unquote open our doors and make sure that you are able to get in touch with our office during these unique times. So if you didn't get an email from somebody directly, feel free to email Global and we can make sure that you get connected to the right person. Or you can always just direct your questions to us at that same email. So with that, I will turn it over to our question moderator, Deb, who can start us out with some questions for the directors.
Hi, directors. I'm going to just start off by reading a couple of questions that came in through the Q&A that were already answered, but I am going to answer them again for our for those students that are watching on YouTube right now. Our first question was for the Moscow Project Center. And do students need to take ID 2050 since they are taking HU 2230? And the answer to that question is yes. All students doing an off-campus IQP take the ID 2050 course in the term prior to their project. The other question was, where can we view all of the videos from the panels? if you would like, all of our panels have been recorded and can be seen on YouTube. You can find the YouTube recordings linked on the Global Fair page. It's plus Global Fair 2020, and under each section you'll be able to find them, or at www.youtube.com/playlist, and then it's a big long section, but you can look them up on YouTube also. My next question is for the Prague directors. What do students usually do during free time on the weekends in Prague?
Sorry, Deb, did you want me to jump in and answer that one?
If you could, Aaron, I know that you typed the
Yeah,
answer
sure.
for people who are watching the recording as well.
No problem. I mean, Prague has a lot of history and a lot of history to it. So there's a lot of castles and museums and architecture and various historical sites. So that brings a lot of people into the city to see all these wonderful things. In total, there's over 1,000 castles and chateaus in the Czech Republic. So that's certainly like a big draw to this country and to the area. There's a lot with performing arts. If you're into music or dance or other types of performing arts, there's certainly a lot of those activities. There's a lot of outdoor activities. The Czech people love to go outdoors, and so they'll often go on hikes and see a lot of the nature and nearby countryside. So if that's something of interest to you, you can do that. It's a major city, the city of Prague, so there are plenty of activities and plenty of businesses to keep you busy. Think about what you would see in a typical major city, lots of restaurants and nightlife and those sort of things. And there's those kind of activities also. So if you're bored coming to Prague, it's probably just because you're sitting in your apartment and staring at the walls. So.
Thank you, Professor. My next question is for Professor Hirsch. What do students usually do during free time in Albania?
They plan for their working week. No, just kidding. There's lots to do, sort of like what Professor Deacon said. In Albania, we have a close relationship with an organization called Outdoor Albania. And they have weekly hiking trips, both 1 or 2 day hiking trips, to the incredible varied landscapes of Albania. So there's wonderful mountains that one can go up. People also like to visit cultural heritage sites, of which there are many in Albania. So they go to cities like Berat or Gjirokasta, where they can see Ottoman era buildings and Ottoman era settlements. They can even go down further to Batrin to see Roman ruins. They also have, for free time, we have a wide range of young Albanians, people their age, students' age, who have worked with our program in some various ways. And so oftentimes our students will interact with local Albanians. Sometimes they'll go back to where their villages are, or they'll just go to the many different cultural activities in Tirana. So we encourage people to travel around Albania for the most part, and typically in free time around Thanksgiving, people go further afield. They fly out to Greece or to Italy or to northern Germany, where they realize that Albania is a very good deal because it's so much cheaper than the other places.
Thank you, Professor Hirsch. Before we go to the next question, I just want to clarify something in one of my previous answers. The HU 2230 course is an online course, so there would not be scheduling conflicts with taking the ID 2050 course. I just forgot to mention that in my previous answer. So let's go on to the next question. This is for Professor Carrera. what is the housing situation in Venice?
Sorry, Fabio, can you unmute?
I forgot about the mute. So we procure apartments for our students in Venice, in the heart of the city, different locations, maybe 2-3 bedroom apartments. And every year they might be different. Some of them stay the same. They're all apartments that have kitchens and everything that's needed to be an autonomous place of living. We like students to stay in apartments because we like them to kind of experience the shopping at local food stores, which and also to get immersed in the pretty famous food culture of Italy, which there's plenty to learn there. They go to the Rialto market, which is a market that's been there for 1,000 years, where they can get fresh fish and fresh produce and then cook it at home. By the way, you don't need to speak Italian to be in Venice. All our students have managed quite well over 30 years without being fluent in Italian.
Thank you, Professor Carrera. I have another question for you. For the Venice Center, is there any sort of scheduled travel outside of the general Venice area?
We don't organize that. We try to do things more in Venice, like Professor Deskins were saying. There's 30 million people come to see the city of Venice every year. There's got to be a good reason for that. So we try to organize things within the city, like learning how to row, like a gondolier, for example, or things of that nature that are more Venetian, and then we let the students plan the rest on their own.
Thank you. So for Professor Nikitina, how important is language level for your center?
So good question. It is not a requirement. So your project partners and pretty much everyone who you encounter at the university where we stay and work speak English. You work with students from the international finance faculty, and they speak more than English. They speak Mandarin. They speak a range of languages. So at the university, you are absolutely fine. But if you would like to explore the city on your own, which you probably will with such an extensive and easy to use public transportation system, you want to read the Cyrillic in order to get off at the right stop or order food at the restaurant. So while it is not a requirement for your project work, it will raise your standard of living while you're there to be at least, to have some basic conversational phrases in Russian, because, unlike Italy, for example, you cannot rely on a person out in the street or in the shop to have any command of English at all. So it will help you a lot. However, if you want to stay on campus, which is a huge campus with all the amenities and sports facilities and the medical center, you're fine there. There, the English skills are no big problem. But the more Russian you get under your belt, the more you'll enjoy your experience.
Thank you. So I have Professor Alt. Did you want to also address that question?
Yes, I do. I know that you might have some questions about the language requirements for Armenia. And Armenia also, much like Russia, having been formerly a part of the Soviet Union, there is a large segment of the population that does speak Russian as well as Armenian. And the Armenian alphabet is unique to Armenia. Fortunately, one of the very well-off members of the Armenian diaspora who lives in America has funded the Armenian government to install English language street signs throughout the city of Yerevan. So you at least don't have to read Armenian in order to be able to navigate your way around the city. But like Russia and many of the other Eastern European countries, the young people in particular do speak English, and we've not had any problem whatsoever with the students getting around in Yerevan and even out into the countryside. I would also like to point out, while I have the floor here, that I failed to mention, very importantly, that WPI has an ongoing relationship with the American University of Armenia, wherein we actually team up WPI students with Armenian students. And so each one of the project teams will have a student from AUA, and they have a co-advisor from the faculty of AUA. And the Armenian students actually come to WPI during C term and participate 100% in the project from the get-go. From the very beginning of ID 2050, you will have an Armenian student who is a partner with you. All of the classes at AUA are taught in English, and so these students are very fluent in English, and that's a perfect opportunity for you to really get a good introduction to the culture through one of your project partners. It's a very unique experience, and we're really looking forward to doing that in full fruition. This year was our first year to do that. The students were here in C term. Unfortunately, we had to send them back while we kept our own students here in the United States. And so they had their Armenian counterparts in Yerevan while they were doing the projects remotely. Next year, we're going to continue with this relationship, and we'll have students first in Worcester and then back in Yerevan. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Alt. And I think that Professor Niamtu, did you want to also address that issue, the language issue?
Yes, I actually did. So unlike the other European countries that you've heard where the language involves some learning curve, Romanians are multilingual. So pretty much everybody, and I really mean that, pretty much everybody will speak English. Pretty much everybody in Bucharest, where our projects are mostly centered, will speak Bucharest. All our sponsors are absolutely fluent, and they've been extremely friendly. So what I was going to share with you is the fact that although our students never got to go to Bucharest because of what happened in March, our sponsors stayed the course, and they made the experience amazing. Like, they created these virtual events for our students, so the students can cook Romanian dishes and taste them while talking to their sponsors. We had events where we met with former ministers of culture, architects, movie directors. So they were so much on board. Our students really honestly are preparing to go on their own to Romania because they couldn't go, just because they were so enthusiastic of the relationship that they have already developed. So now language is absolutely not a problem, although I have to say a lot of our students learn a few Romanian words. Romanian, unlike popular belief, is actually probably one of the closest languages to Latin and Italian. We understand a lot of Italian just because we speak Romanian. So it's not just very easy to pick up, but pretty much it's a very, very common, English is a very common language pretty much everywhere in Romania.
Thank you, Professor. I think we have time for one final question I'm going to pose to Professor Hirsch. When do you usually select the project teams?
It sort of depends, I have to say. I typically, as project center director, sometimes you select the team, sometimes advisors do. But on the whole, I like to select the teams maybe a week or so before the term begins. Because I like the entire cohort of students to start reading more generally about Albania rather than specifically about their project. Because in the summer before the term starts, it's actually a very good time to read general histories or novels or watch films about Albania. So I'm not certain what other center directors or advisors do, but typically it's a little bit before the term begins, term, before ID 2050 begins.
Thank you. I think that's all. Erin, I don't know if you want to wrap things up here.
Yeah, thank you all. It's really great to hear a little bit more about your project centers, and I hope the students who are here tonight were able to get some of their questions answered, and then those that watch the video will as well. So appreciate your time, directors, and students, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Have a good night, everybody.